Thank you, Madam Speaker. I raised this afternoon to make a statement not on a controversial subject but one of necessity. And the issue is to do with government's plan to beef up the work regarding our rural road networks. Madam Speaker, I rise to address this august House to inform the honourable members on the internal transfer within the Fiji Roads Authority of $5 million to support building capacity for immediate response towards improving our rural and maritime roads that is supervised by the Ministry of Rural and Maritime Development. Before the Fiji Roads Authority commenced operations in January 2013, the management of roads in Fiji was disjointed with various agencies looking after different roads. The 11 municipal councils had to sustain the machinery and equipment to look after road networks that were so small. It simply was not possible to do it cost-effectively. And some of these councils had less than 20 kilometers of road. Cutting across the various municipalities were government roads maintained by the Department of National Roads, or the DNR. Road users were easily confused about who was responsible for what road. Madam Speaker, in the rural areas, the situation was complicated further. DNR maintained about 4,000 kilometers of road, whilst the Ministry of Rural and Maritime Development kept watch over some 700 kilometers of road that were typically lower traffic volumes and a lower standard of construction. Outside of these primary access roads managed by DNR and Rural Maritime Development, there were over 6,000 kilometers of cane access roads that only received ad hoc maintenance around the time of the cane harvest. Madam Speaker, this disjointed approach is now a thing of the past. But the legacy it leaves us is one of roads that have been built to varying standards and maintained, or not maintained as the case may be, in an inconsistent way over many years. Roads that were cut to a low standard with the intention of upgrading them over time got forgotten about. The funds became tight. The DNR had a road design and construction standard that had to be met before a road could be passed to them for ongoing maintenance. The practice that was followed for many years by Rural and Maritime Development was to focus on cutting a road within whatever budget was available for that year, and then to try and progressively upgrade the road over coming years until it could meet the standard to enable it to be passed to the DNR. This approach had merit in as far as providing some access, but the reliability of that access was quickly compromised because the roads were not resilient to the harsh environment and heavy rainfall were experienced in rural and maritime areas. Madam Speaker, resilience and reliability are two key words for infrastructure that I will talk more about later. We also have numerous roads that were built in the past for a specific purpose that are no longer in use, but may be revived if the need arises. A number of roads that were built to serve the cocoa industry fall into this category. Thus, we have several hundred kilometers of road that are at some point on the journey from being a raw pilot cut with very little gravel and inadequate drainage to being a properly constructed road that will deliver the level of service we need to get from it. Madam Speaker, and what do we mean by level of service? Quite simply, different roads depending not are sealed. Madam Speaker, to do so would be uneconomic and impractical. FRA currently looks after many roads that are only suitable for four-wheel drive vehicles. There are many other roads that are perfectly fine until it rains, and then they become impassable. They are not resilient, and therefore they are not reliable. Ultimately, we would expect to see very few of these type of roads into the future. Certainly, all roads that provide access to villages, schools, and rural communities will, over time, be brought up to a standard that will allow carriers to travel on them for most of the time with no problems. There will always be extreme weather events that can potentially close off access, but the roads are becoming more and more resilient, and the situation will continue to improve as the upgrade program proceeds. Madam Speaker, resilience in roading is the ability of the road to cope with extreme weather events quickly and bounce back to resume services. The next step up in standard from being a carry-accessible road is when a road is upgraded to the point it can be reliable bus route. And the key word here is reliable. Madam Speaker, there is no point starting a bus service on a road until we can be sure that it is constructed and maintained to a standard that will let the bus operate every day in all conditions. The highest level of services we provide is, of course, the Tahsil Road, and this will generally be on higher traffic rural roads. The long-term goal is to enable people living in isolated rural and maritime areas to have regular access to jobs, markets, education, healthcare, and all of the services that are taken for granted in urban areas. To do this, we must build resilient infrastructure that will reliably provide an appropriate level of service. Madam Speaker, our rural road access and upgrade program is increasing in scale year on year to provide these benefits to more and more Fijians. FRA receives guidance from the divisional commissioners about which existing roads are priorities for upgrading to FRA standards. Madam Speaker, as I already noted, these are roads that may have been cut some years ago, but never built to the standard that will allow reliable service for carriers and private vehicles. These are also roads that are targeted for upgrading to allow bus services to begin to operate as demand for this type of transport service develops. Divisional commissioners also play a key role in identifying where completely new roads are required, particularly for the purposes of connecting villages to the existing network, as well as opening up specific areas for economic development, whether that can be forestry or agriculture. Madam Speaker, last week I reached an agreement with the Honourable Minister for Rural and Maritime Development that clarifies more formally the respective roles of FRA and the Ministry in as far as new rural and maritime road access is concerned. Madam Speaker, FRA already has a $20 million program for new and upgraded rural access in 2015. The agreement I have reached with the Honourable Minister is for a further $5 million this year to be reallocated within FRA budgets to accelerate this program. Madam Speaker, I have also instructed FRA to begin work now to prepare projects for 2016 and beyond. This government takes seriously our obligation under the Constitution to provide reasonable access to transportation of all Fijians. It became clear to me that the current rate of progress, whilst vastly more substantive than in the past, is not fast enough to meet this goal in the time frame we would now like. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I have also asked FRA to develop a program that will ensure that the majority of villages in Fiji have reasonable access to transportation within a target time frame of 5 years. Madam Speaker, this is an ambitious target, I know, but access is fundamental to economic development and social inclusivity. It is this government's intention to deliver those opportunities to all Fijians. Madam Speaker, the agreement the Honourable Minister for Rural Maritime Development and I reached goes further. It also sets out how FRA and the Divisional Commissioners will work more closely to respond to issues that arise on the rural and maritime road networks. We need these two important government agencies working together closely in this area because, as I have already mentioned, we have hundreds of kilometers of road that are still on the journey towards resilience and reliability. Madam Speaker, this is a journey of several years, not months. So whilst we can all appreciate that the permanent solutions will take time, this is no comfort to the parents of schools who have to walk miles to school because the carrier couldn't get to the village. And neither do these parents want to hear that the work will be programmed for action in some weeks' time. No. Madam Speaker, they want to see some action as soon as possible, and that is why I and the Honourable Minister have agreed a protocol for a dedicated fast response fund. This will be a $5 million facility that will be reallocated within FRA budgetary allocation for 2015 and used to respond to specific localized problems identified by the Commissioners. The Commissioners are on the ground in the divisions, and they are a common central point for the people to raise their issues. FRA has technical staff and a network of contactors that can be rapidly deployed to undertake these fast responses. Madam Speaker, we will harness these two complementary attributes by FRA and the Commissioners by identifying specific staff to manage this process. Madam Speaker, there has been much good work carried out in rural areas over the past few years. Service reliability has increased significantly. In 2014 alone, there was grading carried out over 14,000 kilometers of road. I am confident that my ministry has good control over the 95% of the issues with regards to roads. This latest initiative will allow us to address the remaining 5% through the combined efforts of Fiji Roads Authority and the Ministry of Rural and Maritime Development. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honourable House for listening to this statement.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the Leader of the Opposition or her designate. Honourable Rondo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to respond to the ministerial statement by the Honourable Minister for Infrastructure and Transport. Madam Speaker, I'd like to take us back to the 2015 budget. And I was expecting to hear some of the prioritization of the rural roads from the Minister in today's statement, since he's talking about rural roads. The prioritization of the rural roads from the Minister in today's statement, since he's talking about rural roads. In the budget, it says there's 13 rural roads, and I take it that there was the allocation for the 20 million that was allocated as mentioned by the Honourable Minister. And today we hear another 5 million additional allocation that has been allocated within the Fiji Roads Authority that has been given for rural upgrading. Now, what I'd like to request the Minister is whether there has been any planning or prioritization on these 13 roads. Which are the particular 13 roads that will be developed in 2015 as highlighted in the budget? And how much is the cost of the road that will be developed? And what is the time period of all these roads, of the 13 roads that have been identified in the 2015 budget that will be undertaken in 2015? Now, in terms of the cost of the road, I also highlighted, Madam Speaker, that on the 13 roads that has been highlighted, how much is per kilometer per road for the upgrading of the rural roads? The DNR, as has been alluded to by the Minister, had done this work exercise. Now, why do we need additional 5 million for the upgrading of the rural road? Is it because the costs are too high, the consultant costs are too high, or the workman costs are too high? That needs to be clarified. And this is something that is amiss from the ministerial statement in today's statement, Madam Speaker. And also, in terms of the cost, in terms of accountability and transparency, where the proper tender, proper process of tender has been done to a point. Which are the contractors that will be undertaking this work in the rural areas? As we all know, previously, Department of National Road has always had their personnel and staff in the rural areas. And this is usually not a costly exercise to undertake this upgrading of rural roads. Now the question, Madam Speaker, is in terms of the contractors. What are the local inputs of the contractors that will be involved in this upgrading of rural roads? What are the local inputs from the contractors that will be engaged in this rural road upgrading, Madam Speaker? We need to see the value for money. We need to see the value for money for this exercise. Additional 5 million is not a small amount. It's a big amount. And therefore, government needs to be accountable and responsible in the way this money has been inputted. Another issue, Madam Speaker, is the monitoring of these rural road upgrades. Who does the monitoring? Is it FRA? Is it the Ministry of Local Government? Is it the Commissioner? That is something that we need to be informed and take note as we progress during the year. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is the employees. As we note that during the Department of National Roads, most of the employees that were engaged there were locals. And now, where are they? Most of them engaged through the similar exercise, but now through FRA. The question is why? Why do we need to undertake that exercise when we can continue with the norms, but improve? Improve on the way the operations are made. Madam Speaker, I think the decision to improve the road is a good one, but with the costs involved, I think there's a lot more reporting and accountability and transparency process that needs to be undertaken by the Minister himself. Thank you.
I thank the Honourable Rondro for his response. I now give the floor to the Honourable Brownie Ndalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We also support the improvement of local roads and the ministerial statement today. We thank the Minister. Rural roads, Madam Speaker, is a source of livelihood to people who live in the rural areas. The children who go to school, granted some in my maternal home, they still swim part of the way to school. It's charming for those of us who go and observe them when we come from the city, but it wouldn't be very charming for them who do it every morning. And so we support this improvement of roads. And I've also been reminded, I don't know if it falls under the Minister's portfolio, but the Singatoka Rail Bridge has been down for some time. It's for the farmers to access. And the roads going up, again, I declare my interest, the Singatoka Valley Road. These are the rural roads that I know of, the ones that go up past Korolevu and to Namoli, and to Nimbanitu and Nakoro, and also into the Nandi Highlands, into the village of Uto, and those other places, Madam Speaker. I was there, and those roads are really pretty in a bad condition, and other highland parts, the highlands of Nandi. And those who operate public service vehicles are reluctant to go there, or if they do, because of the high costs they have to incur, the costs of transportation to those who live in those rural communities is very high. And it's a burden on the farmers and those who depend on, crops and subsistence, those who come and sell crops in the towns. The costs of coming on those carriers and things are very high, Madam Speaker, so we do support the government's move to improve those roads. And also what the Honourable Member, Mr. Rondondro, has just said about efficiency, so that the government doesn't lose too much money, and make sure that those roads last much longer and help those rural communities and much better. Thank you, Madam Speaker.